Hello there, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Allica Bank's latest market briefing. My name's Matt West, and I'm really pleased to be joined by Sophie today. Sophie, would you mind giving our audience a little bit of introductions to who you are and what you do, please?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm Sophie Hossack and I'm the head of partnerships here at Allica. And my role is primarily focused on how do we partner with accounting firms. So we're really looking at supporting accountants and their clients. And that's what my role's about, which is exciting.
Amazing. And you've come from a slightly different background to, a lot of bankers, I guess, to a certain extent. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I'm not a banker. It's probably the first thing to say. I've actually come from a background in early stage startups, and one of them was working with accountants. So I was part of the founding team of a company called Receipt Bank, which is now called Dext, which is in the accounts payable automation expense management space. So I spent a lot of time here in the UK, but also 5 years working in Australia, building the business out there and working with accountants and bookkeepers over there to really help them move on to cloud and move on to cloud accounting, but really get the benefits of it for their client experience and for their firm. So that's what's almost led me to Allica, because Allica over the summer, we're really looking at, or summer last year, we're really looking at how to become the most recommended bank by accountants and how do we start formalizing how we work with firms, how we support them, and the process and the structure that enables that to happen. So that's really what, it's led me here.
And I think there's a really big opportunity out there for a bank to truly work with accountants and more broadly professional services in a really slick way that adds value to them and their clients. And I guess that's what we're here to talk about today, ultimately, isn't it? What does the business banking landscape look like for if you're an accountant and you're talking to your clients? What does that market look like? So, I guess the first thing to speak about today, Sophie, is that current state. So can you give me a little bit of an idea about, the potted history of that journey of both banks and accountants? Is that all right?
Yeah, of course. So speaking with accountants up and down the country, some of the things that have come up have been they used to have relationships with banks. So traditionally, kind of roll back 10, 15, 20 years ago, a lot of these firms would have really close relationships with their local branch. So that's the team based there and the relationship manager and the banker in that branch. And they would used to have really good conversations and they'd be supported by that branch. They'd be able to introduce clients really confidently because they knew the person there. And of course, as we know, over the years, that retrenching of high street banks has happened at such a large scale now. A lot of these firms, particularly local firms or regional firms, actually don't know who to contact at their local branch. And that makes introducing clients really tricky because if you're introducing a client to an organization, you want to feel confident that they're going to be communicated well, picked up the phone to, supported, and ideally actually given the opportunity to bank with that bank. So from what I've heard, an awful lot of times now, accountants don't know who to signpost to. So that's one part of the problem. The second part of the problem is their clients are coming to them a lot with that frustration. So they've hit that kind of moment in time where they can't access funding anymore, or their account is being closed, or the experience they're getting from their existing bank isn't enough anymore. And so they're coming proactively to their accountant and they're quite frustrated, they're quite anxious, they can be quite worried and concerned because of course it is really stressful, right, when you're talking about these things. So the business owner is saying to their accountant, who do you recommend? Who do you trust? And the accountant isn't able to provide an answer confidently anymore. So that's also the second thing that's happening because we want to be in the position where accountants feel really confident saying, actually, Allica are a really good opportunity or a really good provider for this type of client or this type of business, or this bank is able to support you there. So it's about enabling the firm to both have the contact they've been missing out on, but also the service that they used to have and their clients used to experience. So that's something that we're trying to reinstall.
I think that's also symptomatic of the change of the role of the accountant in the broader business landscape as well, which, if you think back to the 80s and 90s, I can't say I was in professional services in the 80s and 90s, unlike, not like yourself either, Sophie. So neither of us were around in that time in professional services, but the bank manager used to be the heart of the business ecosystem. When you had something that you wanted to talk about in your business, you'd go and talk to the lady or gent who was the local bank manager. You pop down to your high street, talk to them, discuss your business plans, and they go, oh, well, here you go, Sir, Madam, here's a loan for £50,000 to help you on your way. But with the change in regulation and everything that happened in mid 2000s, those bank managers have slowly faded away, which, was much needed because now there's tighter regulations on who can borrow money and in what way. But that has meant that more and more businesses, particularly heritage businesses, are now no longer have a bank manager to talk to. And therefore, who's filled that void? Now they're more likely to go and talk to their accountant, because of the range of services their accountant provides. If they've got a really good relationship, they're likely to pick the phone up to the lady or gent that looks after them and discuss their challenges, right? And the role of the accountant in the local business economy has only increased as bank managers have sadly faded. Accountants need more support from a bank as a result of it.
Absolutely. And also the role of the way accounting firms and practices have been built over the last 10 years. They've been able to be more efficient and more effective because of the technology stack that they're using. So there's been a really transformative change in the accounting industry, which has enabled them to have, I suppose, the ability, the time, the energy to focus on what does the client experience now look like? What type of services do we want to offer? What specialisms and sectors do we want to professionalize in and get really, really good at? Where do we enjoy working? Like, it sounds like quite a simplistic thing to say, but it's a really important one. As a firm, where do you enjoy spending your time, your skills, your energy, providing the insights and the support? So that's really crucial. And it's also really crucial to help firms look at monetizing that. How do they actually monetize that business advice? How do they monetize that support that they're providing? If they can make the administrative tasks, the compliance work, the bookkeeping work run kind of in parallel to that. So how can they make that run in parallel and then be able to offer that at a service level that they feel confident about, and also that's valuable to the customer, to the small business owner or to the business owner. That role has definitely changed, and some firms absolutely have already got that niche, like they've sorted it, they've defined it, they know how it works. And some firms are still on that journey, and we want to play a role in helping them feel supported in that journey, particularly when talking about finances and obviously business banking. We think there are opportunities that can unlock valuable conversations and provide really tactical, very practical, very day-to-day help and advice to support their clients. And in doing so, they're able to unlock the type of services, the type of conversations, the type of long-term strategic thinking that they can aid and support that client with. So it's almost giving them another reason, another kind of excuse to contact their client in a way that's above and beyond that bookkeeping and administrative accounting.
And like you said, that all links back to the fact that there's this whole range of services that accountants now provide to support their clients to not just fulfill their compliance needs, but also to help grow and scale their business through corporate finance, through tax planning, through acquisition support and everything that sits in between. So, like I said, accountants have taken on a more fundamental role in that business landscape. But clearly there's still a market for us as a bank, the banking sector as a whole, to add value back to those accountants as well, right? And I guess, would you mind giving a little bit of a view as to the banking landscape as well? Because that's obviously changed beyond belief as well. We no longer just have the high street banks. We have fintechs and challenger banks like us. How can we work with the sector?
Yeah, I think it goes back to that idea around efficiency and contact. So those are two really fundamental parts of particularly our offering, but a lot of the challenger banks offering, right? So can the experience of banking look and feel different? Over the last 10 to 15 years, we've become so almost used to the bare minimum. So what's the bare minimum level of banking experience that we expect to have now? And so when you ask them, like, what is their banking experience like? And they give you an answer which is, I don't really hear from my bank and that's probably okay. It's like, oh gosh, we've gone so far the other end of that spectrum where there's no service, there's no proactive nature to the relationship. Actually, there may not be a relationship at all. So people have become used to forgetting what it could be like. So I think the challenger banks have done a really good job at both the digital experience, actually accessibility, making it easier, making it more user friendly, making it more conducive to doing work through your banking product that you're using. I think that's the first thing. And then the second thing that makes Allica pretty unique is the relationship side of the communication that we have, the way that we're looking at slightly complex businesses, not the usual, not the norm, not the easy to just onboard and forget about. Actually, we're really trying to get under the skin of these larger, these more complex businesses and the challenges and the obstacles and the opportunities that they have. So that for us is a really important role to play. And it's also a role that doesn't really exist. There aren't a huge number of organizations supporting the business owner at this level from a banking perspective. So we've got an opportunity here to be a really valuable partner, both to the business owner and to the accountant advising that business owner. And one thing that I feel very confident about, but I also feel very passionate about, is that we're sitting side by side, shoulder to shoulder with the accountant serving the business owner. So we're on the same team working to support the business owner to do well. And the more we can partner, the more we know each other, the more we know about, the more the accountant knows the type of business that we bank and support and can serve, the better. But also the more we know about the firm, the type of service that they're providing, the type of support and challenges that they have, the better. So it's all about working side by side. That's a really important and very unique approach.
And I think what you mentioned some really good points there, Sophie, because I think what has happened, and you did mention this when you were talking a minute ago, is banking, as a result of everything that's happened over the last 15 to 20 years, banking has moved from a service to being a product. And therefore clients and accountants probably view banking as a product. You want a bank account, here's a bank account. You want a savings product, here's a savings product. You're looking at buying a property, Mr. or Mrs. Client, here's a mortgage to go against that property. And what it's, I think what we're trying to do, based on all of yours and my conversations, is take that back a notch and go, well, here's a client. What is it you're looking to achieve, Mr. or Mrs. Client? And how can we add value to you? And whether that is a suite of different things that we can help, but more importantly, it is about having that fundamental relationship with a real life person, isn't it? It is having those honest conversations, that no frills approach to, Mr. Customer or Mrs. Customer, you're looking at acquiring another business. How can we help and support you? How can we join those dots? Which has sadly been missing. And accountants clearly hold the key to that because, like I said, they've taken on that role that banks used to fulfill. And then I think the second point is that the SME market can almost be broken down, the business landscape, it can be broken down into probably 3 or 4 areas, which is micro businesses, really well-established corporates. And both those 2 segments tend to be quite well catered for, either by a product in the micro suite or service at the massive corporate suite. And it's that middle ground of long-standing heritage businesses that are properly forgotten about.
And as you said, they made their banking decision probably a while ago, maybe in some instances decades ago. And the experience they got at that moment in time when they chose their bank felt very different to what it does today. And so, as you say, they're being forgotten about. It hasn't maintained the service that they're providing, or the experience that they're getting hasn't grown or maintained. It's actually, in lots of cases, diminished.
And we've spoken a lot, I guess, about lending. I spoke about the fact that, a business is looking to buy a commercial mortgage, get a commercial mortgage. They're looking at buying another business. But obviously in this high interest environment, there's another flip side to that. Would you mind giving a little bit of what that means? Is that all right?
Yeah, of course. So there are, I mentioned earlier, some kind of valuable, tactical, practical ways of introducing and discussing business banking with clients. And one of them is absolutely around, as you just said, what is the savings rate looking like on the cash balances that they may be having? So we know that there is a huge amount of money. We did a report last year, just a huge amount of money being left and just sitting in current accounts where they're earning, in some instances, 0 interest at all, or very, very minimal interest. And there's a real moment in time here where actually accountants can start to be very practical and very proactive about suggesting to their clients that they can be earning quite significant amounts of money on balances that are sitting there. So, we talk a lot internally about where's the value add, and this is one of them. So they can start to say to their clients, you've got, for example, £100,000 sitting here, and actually that could be earning a considerable amount over the course of the next 12 or 18 months. So there are options both in terms of fixed term savings accounts and also instant access accounts where there is higher interest rates on the savings. So that's one really important conversation. And actually, we were talking to a firm only this morning, and because they haven't been used to having that conversation, because for so long it didn't really transpire as being there, right? For so long, this wasn't a conversation that they needed to have. They almost hadn't really realized that there were opportunities to unlock that for their clients. They'd, again, almost accept that the status quo was that actually you don't earn very much on your savings, and that's probably true for everybody, where in reality it's not true for every bank. A lot, we are one of those banks who are considerably giving back the savings that actually have an impact for the business owner. And it's then about, well, what do you then do with that money? What does that additional look like? How are you going to use that? What's it going towards? So that again goes back into that advisory, consultative, strategic, thoughtful conversation that firms can be having with their clients, which is a really exciting opportunity. The second one, which is less about kind of more, but looking at what's less. So banking fees and transaction fees, and what are the banks where actually the clients are spending quite a lot, but again, not receiving a lot from it. Looking at alternatives where you can look at savings also plays a significant role in the advice that you could be giving. So that's the second kind of option to look at.
And I think it's a market that's not as well catered for, because, if you are looking at a lending product, you could talk to a really good finance broker, and there's lots of great finance brokers out there who can unlock the market for you, particularly, if you're willing to pay, a small fee for them to sort the lending out for you or come direct. But the savings product is not as well acknowledged, or the savings market is not as well acknowledged. And it's probably quite an easy way to win client favor is by helping them and supporting them. If client X is earning an extra 5, 10, 15, or if you're, fortunate, 30, 40,000 pounds a year interest income, that's a significant cash injection that you're popping into a business, isn't it?
Absolutely.
And a way to win favor.
And one of the firms that I was talking to actually had the really, I thought, very creative, genuinely commercially creative ideas of that could pay for my fees. That additional could actually pay for my accounting fees and the work that we're going to be doing together, or the projects that we're going to be looking at together. So it's a real win-win in that scenario. I thought he did a really nice job of relating the money that they were earning in a way that was actually feeling like it wasn't costing them anything to then, work with him further.
Well, look, so Sophie, I think there's some really useful insight there as to the world of banking and how it can add value to accountants. I guess to close, what would be your top 3 tips to an accountant to help add value to a client when it comes to banking?
Great question. So I think there are 2 key times at the moment where you can have this conversation. One is when a client is coming to you. So again, if we go back to their kind of emotional state, normally they've reached that frustration point and they're coming to you to look for a solution and they want an answer and help. So it's this kind of reactive recommendation. So they're saying, I need some help. Who would you recommend? So for firms, it's really important that they do have people that they can signpost to, both banks that they can signpost, but also somebody who can actually support, have that phone call, have that conversation or that meeting, and enable the client to feel, yes, this is the right bank for me, or actually there may be some alternatives. So the first one is be prepared for that reactive conversation, because we know it's happening, as I say, up and down the country, week in, week out. The firms that we're talking to, that's happening. The second is to then look at those proactive opportunities to be discussing banking, and not in a very boring, I want to talk to you about banking today, but in a, where are you heading? What are you trying to achieve this year? Last year, these were your growth aspirations. This year, they look slightly differently. What kind of solutions or help or support might you need? And sometimes sometimes other people can provide the answer. And what I mean by that is that sometimes the answer you think that client might need, actually there may be an alternative. So the third part of that point is definitely build that relationship with the banks that you do already have access to. So make sure that you're up to date with what they do, who they can help, who they can't help. And so then you feel more inclined to be up to date with providing that insight back to your client. Because as I say, you might think they might need one thing, but actually the banking team might be able to provide a different alternative or another solution that actually fits the bill a little bit better. So I think those would be my 3 points.
Amazing.
Be prepared for the reactive, conversation. Look for the value add that you can provide to the clients, and then build the relationship with the banks that you have, because it should be two ways, right? The bank should be able to support you, support your clients.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Sophie. And clearly it would be remiss of me not to ask you to do a quick 60 seconds on what our partnership proposition actually looks like. Is that okay?
Yes, please. So we have a partnership team here at Allica. Their roles are around supporting the firm. So really getting to know what's important to the firm, what's important to their client experience, how do they work, what software do they use, what services do they provide, what sectors do they cater for. So our team are then providing really knowledgeable help, support, insights to that business. But our team, it's really important to say, they also manage the referrals or introductions that you would make to your clients. So you could introduce them confidently to the person that you work with, knowing that that person will then help them and see them through the Allica onboarding journey. And we also provide a whole series of marketing activities, events, networking opportunities, to really signpost and have a spotlight on the firms that we are partnering with. So there is loads of ability to shout quite proudly about working with us.
Well, thank you so much, Sophie, and thank you for joining me today. Really looking forward to seeing how the accountancy proposition develops further. Thank you everyone for joining us today in Allica Bank's next market briefing, where we've been joined today by Sophie Hossack, our head of partnerships. We'll post a link to our accountancy proposition, as well as our savings report that Sophie mentioned that we did earlier on last year, in the link in the comments. And we look forward to hearing and speaking to you all soon. Thank you so much.